You're watching ESPN's Feast Week presented by Lowe's. This is the Gildan Charleston Classic, and this is the championship game. From Charleston, South Carolina, it's the Temple Owls out of the American Conference against the Clemson Tigers from the ACC. With Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman. So glad you could join us here tonight to see which team will go home 3-0 and with the trophy. Each of these teams have won consecutive games this week to get to this point. Owls, Tigers for the title. And when comparing these two teams, at least on paper, Corey, well, it certainly seems like Clemson could have an advantage in the post in Elijah Thomas.
And it seems that way because of what he was able to do in the quarterfinal matchup. Eli Thomas came out and was huge on the interior for the Clemson Tigers. And most importantly, he was able to stay on the court and stay out of foul trouble en route to a 17-point, 15-rebound evening. And more importantly, he was able to defend the rim and stopping pretty much everything coming to the basket. Got into foul trouble in their semifinal matchup, was not as effective, needs to be big tonight. And for the other side, Quentin is continuing to grow like a rose in the Fran Dunphy system at Temple. And this young man is a big-time NBA prospect. But most importantly, he's a very effective college player right now.
Averaging 19.5 points per game for the young season through only the 2 games played here in Charleston. And Rose could be that breakout star from this tournament if he continues to grow, as you say, out of Bishop Kearney High School in Rochester, New York. He was one of the big recruits for Fran Dunphy, the 12th-year head coach of the Temple Owls. Philadelphia through and through. A 1970 graduate of LaSalle University. He was an assistant coach for the Explorers in 2 stints. He holds a degree from Villanova, and here he has Temple, while picked 7th in the preseason poll, as a legit contender in that conference. We are underway for the title of the Gildan Charleston Classic. Clemson with the basketball first. Around the perimeter for Clemson, this is Gabe DeVoe, and he turns it over, starting along with Marquise Reed and Shelton Mitchell.
And that's been an area of concern already for Brad Brownell's teams throughout this season. As we get a look at Coach Brownell, they have gotten off to slow starts here in Charleston as well as their 2 games prior to coming to Charleston, but they've been able to overcome talent that just wasn't as good as them. This time they're matched equally with this Temple team. They can't afford to have a slow start and give Temple a big lead in the first half.
Obi Anechionia draws a crowd. 5 on the shot clock. Step back, Shiz Alston Jr. Clemson in the white. And Temple in the cherry.
And 2 opportunities right there. Clemson missed Eli Thomas in the paint, once with a smaller guard, and then with great position with the defender behind him. And then, of course, they get an opportunity to get it in there, just can't deliver the pass.
Shot clock under 10. Reed for 3. And Rose hauls in the rebound.
It's only been 2 possessions, but not a good offensive start for Clemson. They seem a little bit out of sync already. And I know one of the things that Brad Brownell wants them to do is get the ball inside, but their perimeter players have to be aggressive and looking for their own shots to open up opportunities for Thomas in the middle.
Now, conversely for Temple at the offensive end, their center, Ernest DeFlackby, number 24, setting the screen. That's about what they ask him to do in a little offensive rebounding. Work there, and they get the first 2 points on the jump shot from Brown.
And Josh Brown getting back into the lineup this year. Missed the majority of last season with the healing from an Achilles injury. Hasn't shot the ball very well in their 2 games here, but if they get him going offensively, this Temple Owl team will be extremely dangerous.
DeFlackby trying to defend, but that is really hard to stop.
And that's why we were talking about Eli Thomas at the beginning of the game, because I don't believe that Temple has anyone that can match him on the interior. Clemson has to make sure they exploit that early and often.
Rose off the crossover, spins, hangs in the air and gets it to his backcourt mate. Alston Jr. misfires. Rose for 3. And here comes Dante Grantham. The versatile senior is fouled by Brown. He tries to say that he was in the act of shooting, but the officials, a Final Four officiating crew that we have here tonight, says
That's a matchup nightmare when you talk about Temple. Having to guard a guy like Grantham playing the power forward position but can rebound and push the ball, was a point guard in high school, and showing off just a bit of his ball handling on that possession.
Here's that matchup again. Thomas bullying his way into the lane to the left hand. Missed it. Good size along this Temple front line as well. And Echionia 6'10", a Flackby 6'10". There goes Brown. And he gets the bounce.
2 early buckets for Brown, and doing it in the mid-range. Trying to attack the basket. Clemson doing a great job of keeping him away from the rim, but Brown doing an even better job of pulling up and shooting the mid-range shot.
Double team, gets the ball out of Thomas's hands, and he gets it back. Great feed from Marquise Reed.
And Marquise Reed not settling for the three, as Clemson did on Friday. Shot way too many threes. This time they're insisting on getting the ball to the rim and getting the ball in the hands of Eli Thomas, where it's paid dividends for him early in this game.
Bad pass by a Flackby. Fortunate to come back to him. Shot clock at 15. There goes Josh Brown. Lost it off the fingertips on the way up. Mitchell bounce it off Thomas. Great job. Standing his ground like a brick wall. Ernest of Flackby.
And a Flackby, as you mentioned, doing a great job there, holding his ground. And a Flackby is going to be very active because Clemson is set on getting the ball inside Eli Thomas. And you see how hard he's working to get it. Staying on the move and the ability to be able to catch, and more importantly, the patience to get exactly to where he wants to be with that left-hand jump hook.
Back to live action of Flackby. Off the pick and roll, gets a couple of points. Thomas gathers and lays it off the window.
Great job by Shelton Mitchell, probing the defense right there and being patient, waiting for Thomas to get into a scoring lane.
Traveling violation. It'll be Clemson basketball when we come back. And when we come back, where have we seen this before? Well, we're going to have a flashback to the 2008 championship game of the Charleston Classic. Back the clock, 9 years to this tournament's championship, and we had the same matchup that we have tonight. Fran Dunphy, coach then for Temple, as he is tonight. Ryan Brooks led the Owls with 19 points in a losing effort because Clemson was loaded. Terrence Oglesby, boy, he had 16 points, 4 of 8 on three-pointers. But then there was a big man down low named tournament MVP because he was getting work done.
Absolutely. Trevor Booker, I'm sorry, getting it done. I know too many Bookers in the NBA, but getting it done to a tune of 15 points, 16 rebounds in that game, and he was a monster here in the inaugural Charleston Classic. Believe it or not, that was actually the evening they opened this building. Was the first time that this tournament was played. This was the first event ever held in this building.
Look at you educating.
I was doing my research before the game. Yeah,
thank
you very much.
I like that. Well, that team from a decade ago or thereabouts had a big man in the middle they can count on tonight. Well, the Tigers are going to need something big out of Eli Thomas.
And Eli Thomas has shown that he's capable of doing it. Off to a great start already in this one, all 6 points for the Clemson Tigers, and more importantly, the concerted effort by his teammates and his coach, Brad Brownell, to make sure that they exploit the matchup with Thomas on the inside versus any of Temple's bigs.
Tied at 6 early on in this 2017 championship game. Clemson with a basketball. And we talked about the matchups inside with the centers, as Gabe DeVoe misfires. In terms of the perimeter attacks of these two teams, how do they match up, and does one side or the other have a decided advantage in your mind?
If I had to give an advantage one way or the other, I would have to go with Temple at the 2-3 position, because when you think about Quentin Rose, and Shiz Austin averaging 20.5 and 19.5 points per game, respectively. They may have to get the advantage, but Shelton Mitchell has played so well, I will probably give him the advantage over Josh Brown at the point guard position.
First miss for Brown, but Enechionia with the strong putback.
And that's where Enechionia has grown as a player. He's always been able to shoot the three, but going in and attacking the glass is something that really has been added to his game since he's been at Temple with Coach Dunphy, and showing that toughness, the newfound toughness that he's gotten from Coach Dunphy. But when you're in Philly, you don't have a choice but to play tough basketball.
Mitchell around and out. Thomas got a hand on it and back-tapped it. Tigers keep possession with a fresh shot clock.
Okay, so out of the timeout, what we've seen from Clemson, 2 straight three-pointers. Now, they were doing a great job of trying to get the ball inside before then and scoring in the paint, and then 2 straight three-pointers on the last 2 possessions. Get back to where they've been able to have success early in the game.
Brown the takeaway. How about the coaching that this young man has enjoyed during his high school and college careers? Brown played for St. Anthony High School in New Jersey for Naismith Hall of Famer Bob Hurley. And then now he is playing for one of the icons of Philadelphia basketball, Fran Dunphy.
And when by icon, you mean Mr. Big Five. When we talk about Fran Dunphy, it doesn't get any bigger than that. And speaking of big, how about the big shots? We showed the flashback. Clemson guard Terrence Oglesby, who had a lot more hair in 2008 when he was knocking down jumpers in this building, but yet still a part of the Clemson program, a student manager, as well as doing radio on Clemson broadcast.
When you say a lot more hair, it was already going back then.
It was moving back. It was moving back.
I tell you what, though, so I was at practice yesterday. Clemson worked out in the afternoon over at the Citadel, which is obviously here in the city of Charleston. And Oglesby was out there working just as hard as everybody else. He can still get it done. Of course, he's being used as a scout team player, but he can still do it. And I'm guessing if they allowed him to shoot in practice, he could probably outshoot everybody out there.
And I'm for sure he was still talking trash, too, because he did a lot of that in his days at Clemson.
Off the bounce, good-looking mid-range stroke for Alston Jr. Six and a half minutes in. And during that practice for Clemson, they spent the better part of the last 45 minutes as Grantham buries the three, figuring out the best way to attack this zone defense.
That was a great three by Grantham because they did look to get it inside. It just wasn't available. But more importantly, because of the defense having to pay so much attention to Thomas, Grantham was able to get a good look on the perimeter.
Yeah, one of the big keys that Coach Brownell kept reinforcing to his team, especially the freshmen, Brown off the mark, was they had to try and get the ball to the nail, to the free throw line area. In transition, the open three by Mitchell.
And another great three because of the pressure put on the defense by Grantham. If you recognize the difference between those 2 threes, comparison to the ones before on one-pass shots, those are much better plays for Clemson. And when you have a guy like Dante Grantham that has the ability to push the basketball off of a rebound just like this, 6'8", but making point guard-like plays and finding Shelton Mitchell, the much improved shooter on the wing, knocking down the three to give Clemson the 2-point lead.
Rose on the catch and shoot. That young man is playing with confidence.
He really is. 5 for 8 from 3. And there's semifinal matchup against Auburn. And he was a difference maker, coming out and scoring 19 points in that one.
That foul's on. Well, it's announced as Ernest Aflakpee. So Aflakpee picks up his first personal foul. Shot clock at 13. DeVoe off the up fake. A little strong on that jump shot. Rose with it. Here come the Owls. To the bucket. Boy, he draws a crowd, but doesn't deter him from sticking it back in.
Yeah, that's the thing. Again, Quentin Rose getting to the rim, unable to finish. But as most great scorers do before anyone else can even think about the fact that it's a missed shot, he's back in the air, able to tip it in and put 2 points on the board simply because he has a quick second jump. And more importantly, I don't think people realize how tall this young man is.
Mitchell with another triple. Yeah, Rose is every bit of 6'8". He is long and Aggressive. That was an impressive putback. Traveling violation against Alston. Give it back to the Tigers when we come back. Clemson with the narrow lead early in this championship game. Temple head coach Fran Dunphy is truly an educator, and so he's a man who has worn a mustache for decades. And a few years ago, one of his former players here, Deontay Christmas, didn't graduate on time. And Coach Dunphy said, if you do it and get it done, I will shave off my mustache. And lo and behold, a couple years later, Mr. Christmas texted his former coach and said, Coach, you better grab your razor. I got it done. And so Coach paid off. And you know what? For the most part, he has kept the mustache off.
But Grove has it right now for Movember, of course, and so, he actually said he can't wait till he can get an opportunity to shave it off. But I played against Coach Dunphy as we look at so many notable mustaches in sports history, and Coach Dunphy wearing the mustache so well today. And when I remember playing against him in 1992 and 1993 when he was the head coach at Penn, he had it then. That's the look I remembered having with Coach Dunphy having.
Well, that's a great list right there. And the bottom two, Walt Frazier and Keith Hernandez, were famous outside of the sports world because of their facial hair. Because what was the name of the product?
Yeah, are you asking
Just
me
for men.
Are you asking me saying that I need to use it? Is that what's going on right now?
No. Just for men. Just for men. What's your favorite mustache out of that group of six, including Coach Dunphy?
You already know. Raleigh Fingers. And when you get it to curl up on the end, that's something that you have to. There's effort.
Yep.
You don't just wake up with it like that.
The old handlebar mustache. Grantham with the bucket.
Yeah, nice effort by Grantham, not settling and getting to the rim, finishing with the left hand. And we've got, you talking about Grantham, you talk about Quentin Rose, two guys at 6'8" with the tremendous ability to put the ball on the floor. Late whistle on that one, but the right call. Gabe DeVoe knocked Rose off of his route, trying to get to the basketball. Freedom of movement rules will not allow that. I believe the officials would have let it go if not for the fact that it resulted in a turnover.
Corey, just to put a bow on our mustache thing, you know the origin of the mustache for Raleigh Fingers?
I do not.
Oakland A's manager Charlie Finley back in those days offered each of his players $50 if they would grow a mustache in their bid to try and be different, to be a 70s progressive team. They wore the bright colored uniforms, the double knits, and one of the things was grow a mustache. So Raleigh was the one who took it to an extreme to then get the handlebar mustache, and now 50 years later he's still wearing it and having people like you and me talk about it.
Absolutely, and I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if I could pull that off. I'm not sure if I can make that happen.
It takes a lot of wax in terms of to get that to stand up like that.
That's too much effort for me, because I'll tell you right now, if I'm not on TV, I don't shave. So the actual amount of hair would probably be there, but the wax and all that's just too much.
It's a lot of work.
Too much.
You got a little something going on there.
Oh yeah. It's Movember. I got to have something happening.
Clemson with a basketball, leading by 3 over Temple. Alani Moore Jr. has come into the ball game, defending Mitchell. Near travel by Scott Spencer. And the ball ricochets out to Alston.
And Scott Spencer getting the first call off the bench on the perimeter tonight instead of A.J. Oliver, who has gotten it for the first 2 nights with Brad Brownell, as Alani Moore knocks down the 3 on one end of the floor. And Coach Brownell has made it clear, one of these guys, whether it's A.J. Oliver, whether it's Scott Spencer or Clyde Trapp, someone off the bench, one of his young guards has to step up and be a player. And Alani Moore has stepped into the game early and been a player for the Temple Owls. 5 points very quickly.
He's capable of putting up big points. Moore went for 26 against Yale last year.
Alani Moore got valuable experience as a starting point guard. Started 23 games for the Owls last year. You'll see that's one of the bad three-pointers right there. Shelton Mitchell, with no passes on that possession, firing a 3 and not allowing his teammates to get involved in that possession.
Foul called against Damian Moore. The Maui Jim Maui Invitational gets underway with quarterfinal action November 20th. Wichita State has got to be the favorite out there, but Notre Dame is good. Michigan is good. I'll be curious to see how LSU rebuilds that program and if they can get things going down in Baton Rouge.
Well, Will Wade has definitely got a good recruiter coming in, my man Javonte Smart. And so I think that he will get it going down there. I think they'll do a great job, but I'm not sure if they're ready for the competition that they're going to have to see in the Maui Jim Invitational this year, especially when you talk about Wichita State, but also Notre Dame. Player of the Year candidate, not just ACC Player of the Year, but National Player of the Year candidate Bonzie Colson is off to a great start.
Grantham misses the three. And with the SEC being so much better the last couple of years, LSU is one of the teams kind of being left behind in another coaching change. And it is kind of curious how LSU has not been able to sustain any sort of winning with its basketball program over the years.
And they've had talent. No question about that. When you think about Ben Simmons coming in there 2 years ago and you see what he's capable of, the way that he's tearing up the NBA as a rookie, they definitely had some talent coming through Baton Rouge.
9 minutes to go in the half. Moore able to get the inbounds to Damian Moore. He has his shot blocked. Here comes Reed the other way. Spencer off the up fake into the lane. Spins and connects.
And I like Scott Spencer coming into the game, being aggressive, but not just settling for three-pointers, trying to get the ball to the rim. And he's come out ready to play here in the championship game.
Now, he, as a freshman a year ago, was limited to 6 games thanks to a back injury. And so this is first extended opportunity as Brown gets called for the offensive foul. This for Spencer, young man out of Suffolk, Virginia. First real chance to get extended minutes at the college level.
And if any way you want to get in good graces with your coaches, is just like that, getting over the screen and forcing Josh Brown to push him off. And I believe that's going to be the second foul on Brown, the point guard. And Shiz Austin checks back in for him. And Temple played, of course, without Brown last year, so they're, more than comfortable doing it. But Fran Dunphy likes Brown out there as his floor leader, understanding that the redshirt senior knows exactly what he wants from him because he has the experience in the Temple uniform.
Temple again jumps the passing lane. Clemson a little sloppy. Ball still loose, and Rose able to retreat and pick it up. Eight minutes to go in the quarter. Catch and shoot three for Devondre Perry. Good hustle by Damian Moore to come up with that basketball. Alani Moore, he's got 8 quick points off the bench.
And that's the problem with offensive rebounds. It's a scramble. You don't have a man, no one can match up, and the last person you want to leave open, especially early in this game, is Alani Moore, who's already knocked down 2 3-pointers and gotten off to a great offensive start.
Down 3, Grantham goes to work. The double team came, and the foul is called, even though Shiz Alston thought he got him cleanly.
Alani Moore understands his role on this team, and it is to put the ball in the basket off the offensive rebound. Alani Moore, 3-ball, corner pocket.
Well, the only man funnier and more entertaining than Seth Greenberg? That man, Bill Murray. Bill Murray in attendance here at TD Arena in Charleston, South Carolina, taking in the championship game of the Gildan Charleston Classic. Favorite Bill Murray movie for Corey Alexander is?
Stripes, not Caddyshack, but Stripes.
I'm with you.
My favorite. I loved it. And appreciate the love from my man, Coach Seth Greenberg out there. He can remember. I used to be able to elevate back in the day. Not so much anymore.
I'm a lean, mean, fighting machine.
Love.
Do it.
Love Stripes.
Classic. 22-19, Temple over Clemson. And Bill Murray, obviously, is, if you're a sports fan, you know he's a huge sports fan, big Cubs fan, and his son is in the basketball industry, Division I assistant coach. Temple with the basketball and a 3-point lead. Alani Moore, the second, has come off the bench to lead the offense for Temple. Josh Brown, the starting point guard, currently on the bench with 2 fouls. Obi Anechionia And there's Grantham, the rebound.
And this, you see the rim run by Thomas right now. This is where you need to be looking for Eli Thomas on the inside. The great feed, but at the same, and nothing wrong with that three-pointer by Gabe DeVoe. But when your big fella's running that hard, you got to make sure he gets a look at the basketball. Otherwise, they stop running.
That is the first bucket scored in the young college career, the Baltimore native, Devondre Perry.
One of the things I love about Coach Dunphy, his guys are going to get an opportunity. When you think about his freshmen and getting them out there, he's going to get them out there in meaningful games because he knows that they're going to need this experience later in the season. And so he's going to give, and we talked about Perry, hadn't made a shot thus far this year, but yet he's out there in meaningful minutes here in this first half of a championship game.
Shiz Alston Jr. from way downtown.
Shiz Alston is one of those guys to where he just comes in and gets the job done. He's great handling the basketball, always a high assist-to-turnover ratio, but more importantly, averaging 20.5 points per game, and yet he's not the guy getting the headlines.
Mitchell gets to the basket again. He's got 9. Make it 10 on 4 of 6 shooting.
We talked about the matchups beforehand, and I said I felt as though Clemson may have an advantage at the point guard position because of the way that Shelton Mitchell has played thus far this season, and he has not disappointed in his effort here tonight.
Clemson down 4. Mitchell again able to get into the lane, a little more of a wild shot that time. Annecchionia couldn't corral it, and so Clemson keeps.
And when Shiz Alston comes off a screen, he's not allowed to have this much space. Grantham thinks he's up enough, yet Shiz Alston's range extends well beyond the three-point line.
Thomas missed the layup. Back the other way comes Temple with a 4-point lead. Under 5 minutes to go in the half in this championship game of the Gildan-Charleston Classic. Annecchionia misfired.
But those are shots that Eli Thomas is affecting. You see him, he doesn't get a block shot on every attempt, but he is affecting so many looks around the rim, not only against Annecchionia, but as well as Moore and everyone else, the other post players in the lane. For Temple, they're looking for him every time they get the opportunity inside. They're making sure that he's not around to block his shot.
First foul on Elijah Thomas with an illegal screen. Well, Shiz Alston Jr. is Levon Alston Jr. That's his given name, and there's his dad of the same name, who was a real good player more than 2 decades ago, also at Temple.
Absolutely, and played at the height of the Temple success when you think about the time where they had a backcourt of Rick Brunson and Eddie Jones and Aaron McKee. Levon Alston, one of those players in that bunch, and then, of course, went on when those guys left to be more of a dominant factor for the Temple Owls, and Annecchionia knocks down his first three-pointer of the game, and that's something that it's a great sign for the Temple Owls, but not a happy sign if you're Brad Brownell, because you do not want him getting hot in this game.
Well, the Alstons are quite a father-son duo, and like many dads and their boys, they have a friendly rivalry that Levon Sr. says he's never yet lost to his son in a game of one-on-one. Junior, Shiz will acknowledge that.
Because he says he won't play him. That's what fathers are supposed to do. You don't play anymore.
He said, my dad cheats too.
Well, I mean, again.
And Dad agrees. He said, yeah, I cheat and I still win.
You're supposed to cheat as a dad. These are just rules. I mean, like I said, these rules go hand in hand. And when you can't beat them anymore, you stop playing.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Lowe's. Hurry in today for huge savings on all things winter.
Gentlemen, thank you. And why not spend your Thanksgiving not thinking about turkey so much, not thinking about football, but what about basketball? We've got the PK80 presented by State Farm. First time event out in Portland, Oregon to honor the 80th birthday of Nike co-founder Phil Knight. And the lineup, Corey, is second to none.
Absolutely. You just think about the fact that you have 2 tournaments going on in the same city. When you say 2 tournaments, it's 2 different brackets, but one tournament going in the same city with this level of competition, 16 of the best programs. I won't even just say Nike programs, just 16 of the best programs in the country getting the job done. And let me tell you this. I've seen the uniforms that they're going to wear. It's some cutting-edge special stuff that Nike has pulled out for this tournament.
Well, they released the photographs of them earlier this week, which I saw. Have you actually seen them in person?
That's classified information that I'm not allowed to tell you.
Well, one of the things that caught my eye about those uniforms for PK80 is that they're all the school colors. So for somebody like you, colorblind, that's going to be tough to differentiate.
I'm not sure if you're talking about my disability right there or if you're genuinely being concerned. Which one is it? Let's clear the air right now. Are you joking my disability?
That would probably be A, yes.
Okay, all right, I'm just making sure. In that case, good one. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there will be no traditional home wearing white, and then the opposing team wearing a darker color. They will wear their school colors. So for me, it would be a turnover fest personally. But yet, it will look good, almost like the color rush in the NFL.
My favorite out of the group was the Arkansas one. I love the Razorback on the front, the logo, the actual Razorback.
I'm just jealous that you'll get to see it in person, and I've got to watch it on TV.
Yeah. Ernest of Flackpee. His coach, Fran Dunphy, says he's not a scorer, although he's got 4 points tonight, but Ern plays harder than any player we have.
Well, and he's getting heavier minutes tonight because Clemson plays a bigger lineup. So Temple really has two styles of play. They have the small lineup with four guards with Alani Moore and Josh Brown normally in the game. But Josh Brown is in foul trouble, so therefore he's out. And more importantly, with Clemson having a bigger lineup, Temple plays a bigger lineup to match up, which gives the Flackpee a lot more opportunity on the court.
Corey, Marquise Reed coming off a historic performance on Friday against Hofstra, gets his first 3 points with just over 2 minutes remaining in this ball game. He was the first Clemson Tiger since Horace Grant way back in 1987 to have as many as 16 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists in a single game.
And I do remember seeing those numbers, and it was a great game for Marquise Reed. But I believe when Horace Grant did it, he had 32 points.
Yeah, he had 33 points.
I'm sorry, 33 points.
12 rebounds and 6 assists.
So basically, the 11 rebounds by Marquise Reed, first off, was extremely impressive for a guard to go get 11 rebounds. But when you start putting yourself in the class of Horace Grant, you had a great game, to say the least.
Obi Anechionia making things happen. Dante Grantham has picked up his first personal. It's the 7th against Clemson. And Echionia goes to the free throw line.
And I agree with Coach Greenberg when he said in the studio how Clemson needs to establish Eli Thomas again on the offensive end of the floor. I believe they got away from that, after the first stretch. Eli Thomas scored the first 6 points for Clemson. And after that, the three-pointers started to come out. And they've got away from trying to get the ball on the interior. And I think that one thing that the Clemson players need to recognize is that once they get the ball inside and allow Thomas to work, he will kick it out and it will get them open opportunities. I know Brad Brownell has preached that to his team, but at the same time, it has to be executed on the floor.
Temple's lead is 5 off the free throws from Anechionia. Reed off the switch, tries to give it back, but it goes out of bounds off of Clemson.
Seven turnovers in the first half for Clemson, which is a bit too high, especially when you've got veteran guards and playing against this Temple team. You cannot continue to give them opportunities. 5 turnovers for Temple already in this one, which is high. But no turnover there from Alani Moore as he continues his hot shooting here in the first half.
Yeah, stay hot. Alani Moore, 3 of 5 from downtown, 11 points off the bench for Temple. And Clemson uses a timeout. Little burst here for the Owls late in the half, and they've got some separation, up 8 in this title game. With Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman. Alani Moore, the second, has been the first scorer coming off the bench for the Owls.
And Alani Moore started 23 games as a freshman last year, so he has experience in this lineup. And in championship time, he's coming up huge in this first half for the Temple Owls. Already 3 3-point field goals, 4 for 6 overall. And not only getting it done offensively, but defensively as well. As Josh Brown sits, Alani Moore has taken over the reins for the Owls.
And he is as competitive as they come, helping force the timeout called by Clemson. Alani Moore's a young man from Washington, D.C., who prepped at DeMatha Catholic and Montrose Christian before finishing up at Friendship Academy. He's somebody who you've known right along.
Got an opportunity to see him a lot in high school, and of course, you know, what he's doing here is what he did in high school. A young man who can shoot the ball extremely well, as you can see, but more importantly, competitive, gets in you defensively, fits the mold of what Fran Dunphy wants from his point guards, because he's, like we talked about, his competitive nature, but defensively, and as a smaller in stature guy, he's tough, and he will not allow his size to be a detriment to him in any way whatsoever. I would love to see, and for everyone to get to see a big try to post him up. You want to talk about basically a fist fight on the court?
Yep.
You try to post him up, and you see what happens on this one. It's definitely going to get physical.
Now, you tell the audience what you observed to me yesterday during Temple practice about where Moore was on the floor in the pecking order of starters and reserves and what that did to him out there.
Well, I think that he's really like a sixth starter, but at the same time in practice yesterday, he had to get extra minutes with guys who were not playing while the starters sat and watched. And at first, it didn't seem as though he wanted to be out there, but I think he got a little ticked off, and I know that Coach Dunphy knows how to press his buttons. And Coach Dunphy said the one thing to press his button, and Alani Moore just took over the entire scrimmage. And again, that's coaching. And Coach Dunphy talked to us about the fact that coaching now is honestly not necessarily mind games, but being able to relate mentally to each and every one of his players on a different level. And he knows how to do it with all of his guys, but knows how to get the best out of Alani Moore, exactly what he's getting here in this first half.
Well, when Coach Dunphy first got into coaching back in the 1970s, the prototype was Bob Knight, the dictator, you know, the venom. You're going to yell and scream at you guys, but that doesn't work so well anymore. And Coach Dunphy, over the course of the 40 years he's been doing this, has evolved for the better.
And we asked him about that, you know, what were you, what type of coach were you? And he simply said, I used to have my hand in control of everything. He says, but now I delegate as much as I can to my assistant coaches. I allow them to coach and be a part of it. And we watched practice yesterday. He wasn't telling guys what to do. He was having dialogue regarding what they do. And you see, you know, he's basically taken over for John Chaney and so many great coaches at Temple. And you see, they're one of the top 5 winningest programs in college basketball history.
Right. If you ask most college basketball fans to name the top 5 winningest programs in sport history, the first 4 people would get. I don't think most folks would come up with Temple at number 5.
I'll be honest with you, it was a surprise to me when I found it out reading their notes yesterday that they were number 5.
Final 14 seconds of the half. Clemson with the basketball. Shelton Mitchell into the lane, and he draws the foul. So an empty trip at one end for Temple turns into an opportunity at the free throw line for Clemson. Second personal foul on Shiz Alston. And so Shelton Mitchell, one of your former charges at Oak Hill Academy, goes to the free throw line.
And Shelton Mitchell's played a very good first half. Already 10 points, an opportunity to gain more at the line, now up to 11. And more importantly, the way he shot the basketball has kept the defense honest. And this was something that he could not do coming out of high school. He was not a guy that you feared making three-pointers. Even his teammate, high school teammate, Brock Gustis, who plays for Hofstra, was shocked at seeing Shelton knock down three-pointer after three-pointer against them in the semifinal round.
Now, the reality is he's gotten so good that Mitchell last year shot 45% from three-point land and is capable of making that shot. You've got to honor it and defend it.
And great substitution right here with 8.1 by Brad Brownell to make sure he got Shelton Mitchell and Elijah Thomas out of the game. To be clear, they don't pick up a foul here in the last seconds.
Q Rose, no. Got a good look, but couldn't get it to go. Temple has the upper hand with 20 minutes in the books. Shelton Mitchell with 12 points, helping to keep the Tigers within arm's reach. It's halftime here in Charleston, South Carolina. The score 37-31 Temple. Now we send you back to the studio. You're watching ESPN's Feast Week presented by Lowe's. This is the Gildan Charleston Classic Championship game. And we are at halftime, not far from the USS Yorktown. Here in downtown Charleston, 37-31, the Owls out of the American Conference with a 6-point lead over the Tigers from the ACC. With Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman. And we said off the top, Corey, that Eli Thomas was going to be potentially a big difference maker for Clemson. He looked like he was going to impose his will early, but then it kind of settled out.
He really did, and his teammates looked for him early. Eli Thomas got off to a great start, scoring Clemson's first 6 points, attacking the rim and getting the ball in the paint. You see the beautiful left-hand jump hook, and then off the feed from Marquise Reed is able to finish above the rim. He got some help from Shelton Mitchell in the first half, who honestly I thought would be the difference maker at the point guard position. But as the great Lee Corso says, not so fast, my friend. Alani Moore showed up huge for the Temple Owls when Josh Brown got in foul trouble and sat down early. And Alani Moore with a big first half for the Owls to help them push to a 6-point lead.
And our game track brought to you by Gildan. We want more. 11 points off the bench for the sophomore point guard, and then the leading Tiger at the point, Shelton Mitchell, 12 points. The junior from Waxhaw, North Carolina. They start off on defense to Clemson. Temple with the basketball and a 6-point lead. As we said off the top, this is a rematch of the championship game from 9 years ago, the inaugural event, which Clemson won over Temple.
And the last 2 matchups between these 2 programs have happened here at the Gildan Charleston Classic, and Clemson has won both of them. Not just that championship game in 2008, but also in 2013, Clemson was able to beat Temple in the early round.
I like your Lee Corso impersonation.
Oh, absolutely. Not so fast, my friend. I get up early on Saturdays just for that.
You should borrow my pencil the next time you're doing it, though. He's always holding a pencil. Josh Brown, who had very few minutes in that first half because of 2 fouls, buries the long 3.
But Brown has shot the ball very well in this game. Got off to a good start offensively, knocking down his first 2 shots. And gets going early in the second half as well.
Grantham feeds the post to Thomas. Gets double teamed and has it stolen. Quentin Rose to Josh Brown. That break seemed to be undone by a sloppy pass by Rose. Lead to DeVoe. And he turns it back over. A little bit of sloppiness here to start the second half. Well, this is only the 3rd game of the year for Temple. It's unusual that they hadn't played a game before coming here to Charleston, and they were actually the last Division I men's basketball team to play a game this year. But it wasn't for a lack of effort. Coach Dunphy was telling us at practice yesterday they really did want to play a game before here, but scheduling is a problem. And one of the teams they had identified as trying to play an earlier game against, Brown again for 3, was Indiana State. The Sycamores chose to play that game in Bloomington against Indiana in the slot they had, and they played the Hoosiers as opposed to playing the Owls. And so Temple comes here cold, but playing very well.
Not many people want to go play Temple, to be completely honest.
Right.
When you think about having to play against this team, and more importantly, playing them in Philly, you're asking for trouble. It's very seldom do people come away with wins playing on Temple's home court.
Brown. And I don't know what the dollar figures involved were, but perhaps the guarantee was bigger just to go up to Bloomington from Terre Haute as opposed to traveling to Philly. And I would imagine for the Indiana State fan base, it's a lot more exciting to play the Hoosiers than the Owls.
Well, and it worked out for Indiana State because they got a win against the Hoosiers, and it came here to the Gildan Charleston Classic and went 0-3. So therefore, I'm sure they were much better off getting that win at Indiana and coming here playing against this competition.
Catch and shoot 3, Reed off the mark, and a rebounding foul goes against the Owls.
That kind of goes back to, what we talked about early as we were watching Josh Brown get involved. And I'm sorry, actually, Marquise Reed was the guy that on the break knocking down the three, but Josh Brown has made 2 3-pointers already in this second half to start it off. But Indiana State beats Indiana by 21 points at Indiana. They come here and lose their first game to Auburn. And then, of course, now as they're moving forward, you've got to still play against heavy competition. They end up losing in a 4-overtime game to Ohio earlier today. And, again, that just shows the level of competition that has been here at the Gildan Charleston Classic this year. Great field. And then we talk about Temple. Temple had to beat ODU in the first round, who's a very good team, and then beat Auburn, 2 teams that possibly could make it to the NCAA tournament, and now are going up against Clemson here in the championship.
On the takeaway, Rose. That ball was tipped near the cylinder. Was it on the cylinder? Indeed it was.
That was a bailout right there from Marquise Reed, because that ball was coming off, and it really was a play where Quentin Rose should have given the basketball up. I believe he had Shiz Austin running with him instead of taking the tough one, but Marquise Reed bails it out with the with the goaltending.
So give 2 points to Quentin Rose. He's got a half a dozen, and this is the largest lead of the night. DeVoe, short on the corner 3, and Alston's going to be called for the foul. That's the 3rd on the junior out of the Haverford School in Philly. And, you know, we talked about his dad. He played for his dad in high school as well.
And Levan, a big-time player. You talk about high school. He played for his dad in high school, but how about when he was playing for Team Final AAU of the Nike EYBL for my guy Aaron Burt? And this young man played with some studs. Malachi Richardson.
Yeah, he was pretty good. Is pretty good.
Dante DeFangio, Villanova
Very
stud.
Good. Yep.
Fresh Kimball.
Oh, yeah.
St. Joe. Tyus Battle. Syracuse. I mean, you're talking about some studs on the AAU team. I actually had to coach against that team.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't think we won either. I have to go back and look at the record.
Brown guarded by Grantham. Temple going with the 2-point guard look. Back to the basket, 6 to shoot, and Echionia kicks it out. Q rises up. Rose can't get the roll. And Thomas was the last to touch. So it'll be Owls basketball, holding on to a 9-point lead when we come back.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Lowe's. Hurry in today for huge savings on all things winter.
Aaron McKee was one of the great players in Temple basketball history, selected 17th overall in the 1994 NBA draft, enjoyed a 13-year pro career, then spent a decade as an assistant coach with the hometown 76ers, but he left the NBA to come back to his alma mater.
And he told me he never thought that he would be coaching college basketball when he finished with the NBA, but he just felt the need to be a mentor and be a part of these young men's lives. And he's a great one to be able to do so, but we got a problem. I'm going to be honest with you. Aaron and I were having a great conversation yesterday until he mentioned the fact that his Eagles had to play my Cowboys tonight. And, you know, if he wasn't that much bigger than me, we might have got the fisticuffs, but I don't want problems with Aaron. He's a little too big, and he's still in very good shape, so we don't need those problems. But I didn't appreciate his talking about his Eagles. They got to play against my Cowboys.
Well, you don't want to hear the score I just heard in my ear with the Eagles up 23-9, so I won't tell you that.
Wait a minute. How do you say I don't want to hear it? Then you say the score. How does that happen?
And I seem to intuitively understand that as soon as you guys started talking football, I walked away from that conversation so as not to get in the middle of those fisticuffs, because if he's bigger than you, you're both way bigger than me.
Yeah, I had to get him off of you. So therefore, that's not going to help either one of us. Now I'm even madder because he assured me at least it was going to be a good game.
Now there's still time. Marquise Reed has been quiet on the offensive end. And then it looks like he's going to pick up an offensive foul. He left his feet on the pass. Jeffrey Anderson makes the call, the official. sits the entire Clemson bench down and says, I got it. That is indeed the second personal foul on Reed.
That's a lot of control right there when you can just put your hand out and everyone sits down.
Yep.
That's pretty impressive right there.
Well, this is truly a Final Four officiating crew that we have here. The aforementioned Jeff Anderson along with John Higgins and Ted Valentine.
Yes, sir. Who made it very clear to us that he loves doing this tournament.
Because?
Travel is very limited for my man TV Ted Valentine. The travel is very limited for here. He loves being a part of this Charleston Classic.
Well, officials rarely have home games.
Yeah, very true.
You know, so they're on the road almost the entire season, so you got to take the opportunity to sleep in your own bed when you can. And Echionia off the quick spin goes to the opposite side of the bucket and lays it in.
And that's a nice move. I had the opportunity to coach this young man when he was in high school, and I can tell you right now, he did not have that in his arsenal. A great job at developing his post game to go along with that ability to shoot the ball from the outside. And you can see right now this Temple team has their foot securely on the gas pedal right now, and Fran Dunphy is not going to allow his guys to let up.
Josh Brown turned his head and didn't know the outlet pass was coming, and so held ball. The possession arrow stays down at this end. And Echionia doing things that, well, he didn't have in his arsenal 4 years ago.
A beautiful move right there, and recognizing that with Shelton Mitchell giving up the size, he was going to put a lot of pressure on him. Obi feeling where that pressure was, and a nice spin move, and more importantly, relocating to the other side of the rim to finish.
You know, the Echionia family from Springfield, Virginia, was a soccer family. As you get an offensive foul. But as it turned out, the Echioниas turned over to become basketball people. The older brother, Nnamdi Echionia, is a 6'6", fifth-year senior at St. Peter's University of the Mac. Then Obi Echionia is a fourth-year senior here at Temple and a potential NBA prospect. And then the third brother is a young man named Chuchu. He played at VMI last year, didn't get a lot of playing time as a freshman, so Chuchu has transferred out to Lincoln Trail College in Robinson, Illinois. 3 Division I basketball players out of the same family.
And again, when you think about it, these are young men, as you mentioned, the soccer background, but of course love the game of basketball. And I can remember when Obi was being recruited coming out of high school and talking to his father about so many different opportunities, but Temple really was a great fit for him. And Fran Dunphy has given him the freedom to be a 6'10" shooter where many people wouldn't do that. They wanted for him to come in and fit what they did. Fran Dunphy allowing him the freedom to do what he does best. And right now, it has helped the Temple Owls build a 14-point lead.
It's a 13-5 run capped by the three-point shot by Josh Brown. And the redshirt senior from Newark, New Jersey, has had the hot hand all night long.
Josh Brown has found his rhythm here to the tune to keep his team up 14.
Josh Brown, the 6'3", fifth-year senior point guard, had a little foul trouble in the first half, but he's back out there and really knocking down shots here in the second.
Well, it's fair enough to say he shot himself out of trouble right now, knocking down 3 3-pointers here in the second half already. And Josh Brown, the redshirt senior leader, one of the 2 captains on this Temple team, is dead set on getting his team a championship here this evening.
There are the numbers for Brown. He earned his bachelor's degree in criminal justice last spring, and really since the day he stepped foot on the Philadelphia campus 5 years ago, he has been, if not, certainly among the hardest workers in this program.
Absolutely, and great to see him back from an Achilles injury that limited him only to 5 games a season ago. Great feed by Shelton Mitchell, and now you see Clemson picking up, going into a 2-2-1 pressure. But Temple, that's the problem when you play against Temple and the ability to shoot the basketball. And Echionia misses one there. If you force quick shots, you can get out of transition just like that. Great job by Marquise Reed pushing the tempo. But you've got to recognize where these shooters are for Temple. And Echionia misses one there, but that could have been a big bucket to extend the lead for Temple.
So what was a 14-point lead quickly back down to 10. We are in the state of South Carolina, and so those folks rooting for the Clemson Tigers making a little noise. And here they come off the miss. Marquise Reed.
The score here may force a timeout from Fran Dunphy if he does not like the way this thing is going.
Reed had it poked away from behind by Alani Moore. Clemson will keep. So what do the Clemson Tigers need to do to get back in the ball game? We will discuss. Oregon for the inaugural PK80 presented by State Farm. Couple of brackets, 8 teams each side. You've got Duke, you've got Carolina, you've got the national runners-up from a year ago, Gonzaga. You've got Florida, and on and on and on. What an incredible field for this 4-day extravaganza on the West Coast.
I just saw that Butler-Texas matchup. 2 of my guys, Matt Coleman, freshman point guard, versus Aaron Thompson, another one of my guys, freshman point guard for Butler. I will be tuned in for that one, definitely.
All right, Clemson down 10 here, 11 and a half minutes to go in this championship game. And Corey Alexander, what do the Tigers need to do? They were down 14 a few minutes ago. Now back to 10. What do they need to do to further get back in this game?
Well, it starts with putting points on the board, and not only just to score, but more importantly to be able to set up that full court pressure and force some quick shots from Temple. Even if they can't turn them over, forcing quick shots often is like a turnover and allows Clemson to be able to get back out into transition. So, but more importantly, you have to get some points on the board and to stop the play in order to be able to set up your full court defense.
Now, we asked Brad Brownell at Clemson practice yesterday, for as good as Dante Grantham is and has been here this week, do you ever wish that he would be more selfish? And Coach's response really was, no, not really, because that's not who Dante is. But in a circumstance like this, where you're down 10, do you, Corey Alexander, wish that Dante Grantham would be a little more selfish on the offensive end?
I'm going to agree with Coach Brownell simply because Dante Grantham is a good ball handler for a guy that's 6'8". But if you're going to ask someone to be more selfish, it's normally going to be someone about 6'1" or 6'2" that can go create shots for themselves, getting into the paint, as well as creating shots for their teammates. So that's the type of guys that you need to be a little more selfish, as Donnell is fouled on a three-point shot. And see, this is more so what we were talking about here. So right now, Clemson has the opportunity to cut further into this lead if Donnell can make 3 free throws, but regardless as to whatever he makes, they can set up their full court pressure and see if they can force Temple into more quick shots. But I'm sure if Coach Dunphy has told his team, when you break the press, we don't have to immediately shoot the basketball, pull it out, and continue to run our stuff.
Mark Donnell, the grad transfer from the University of Michigan, out of Monclova, Ohio, gets the first 2. He'll get a third after being fouled in the act of shooting a 3 by Alani Moore. Second foul on Moore.
And here's the change right now. Coach Dunphy going to the smaller lineup. We talked about this in the first half. Temple's ability to play 4 guards, because Quentin Rose is 6'8", so he can match up with Dante Grantham. But against this pressure, being able to have these 4 guards on the court helps. And now no quick shot as they break it. And you see Clemson dropping back into the 2-3 zone. Josh Brown will set the middle for Temple, but it does take time off of the shot clock and trying not to give Temple good looks.
6 to shoot. Rose fires up. Reed able to save it. Clemson on a 7-0 run. Mitchell, no. Owls come away with it. Inechionia from long range.
And again, that's a quick shot, but it's a great shooter at the top of the key. Inechionia, and more importantly, it's not a one-pass shot. I'm sorry, it is a one-pass shot, but in his rhythm right there, catching, extending right back to a double-digit lead.
We've reached the midpoint of the second half of the championship of the 2017 Gildan Charleston Classic. Ball will stay down at this end with Clemson. Mitchell, Reed, Grantham, Donnell, and DeVoe, the 5 on the floor for Brad Brownell. Donnell spotting up with a deep 3.
That's the dimension that Donnell gives Clemson that you don't get with Eli Thomas. The ability to shoot the 3 and stretch the defense, especially in a time like this where you need to put points on the board quickly.
Echionia. Brown swings the pass around to Rose. Bad pass taken away by DeVoe. Quick three. Reed couldn't find the range, and the ball ping-pongs to Temple.
2 opportunities, one by Shelton Mitchell in the paint, another one by Marquise Reed right there to get this game to a much more manageable point. Clemson unable to knock down either one of them, but still just under 9 minutes remaining in this game. There's lots of time. Clemson doesn't have to feel like they need to get it all back on one possession.
Alston on the switch, goes right around Donnell. And the former Wolverine picks up his 3rd personal. Mark's older brother Andrew Donnell played O-line at Iowa, was a 4th-round pick of the Rams in 2015. Actually should have made his debut with his new NFL team today. Here's the American preseason poll that has Temple just about middle of the pack, but that is, I think, more a response to the way last season finished up for Fran Dunphy than what the reality is right now going forward.
I believe so, and I can see Cincinnati, Wichita State. I like Central Florida, what Johnny Dawkins is doing there. Shake Milton at SMU is one of the best players in the country. You've heard it here first if you didn't know it before. UConn and Houston, I still got to see it from UConn. Love Kevin Ollie and what he's been able to do, but I still got to see it from them. I think they have a lot to prove from last year. I'm not sure if UConn and Houston are better than this Temple team, but that's the reason they play the game, right? We will soon find out.
Well, Kevin Ollie at this point has a much healthier roster than he did a year ago to give them a much better chance to compete in that league.
Well, and he has Alterique Gilbert back, which is huge. I mean, getting him back in the fold and healthy is going to be key for UConn this season.
Yeah, he's the rare guy, consecutive years named preseason rookie of the year in his league. A lot is expected in Stores and in Hartford and around the state of Connecticut. Alterique Gilbert for the UConn Huskies. Grantham drew a crowd of owls and turned it back. Under 8 minutes now to go.
And right now, if you're Clemson, just get a solid possession. Make sure you get a quality look at the basket and assess your defense.
That's a tripping violation against the freshman out of Polytechnic Institute in Baltimore, Devondre Perry. 55-46, Temple up 9.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Gildan. Love your dad, but don't wear his underwear. Gildan, every thread counts.
Tonight, be sure to cap off your weekend with Scott Van Pelt and SportsCenter at midnight Eastern on ESPN. He'll have reaction and analysis from Dallas after the big game between the Cowboys and the Eagles. Plus, will the Rams-Vikings winner have an inside track to a bye on the NFC? And, you know, it was 5 years ago today that the butt fumble occurred in New York. We'll have the not top plays of all time coming up midnight Eastern with SVP. Well, you know, we believe Fran Dunphy is the one Division I men's basketball coach who is also a professor, and he does it every week at Temple University.
And been doing it for 10 years in the fall semester. And here's the question there. Is Elijah Thomas, I believe, comes up with another turnover on an offensive foul, and which is going to be 7 turnovers for him on the evening. But here's the thing. Okay, as a college basketball player, how can you not go to class when your coach teaches management theory and practice from the locker room to the boardroom? How can you get away with not going to class?
Gotta go.
The answer is you can't at Temple. You're going to class.
Gotta go.
Because not only is he a coach, he's a professor, and he knows all the professors.
Well, you know, Fran was also a professor in his last stop as well in the Ivy League at Penn. And so he has, for the last quarter century or so, been a lecturer. He did it at the Wharton School at Penn and does it now in the Fox School of Business at Temple. We asked him yesterday after practice, who's the most notable either Temple or Penn alumnus who you had in your class? And with those two schools, you never know. It could be a politician. It could be, a world leader. He said Mark DeRosa. And if you don't know who Mark DeRosa is, he was a two-sport athlete at Penn, played quarterback, and was a baseball star who played more than a decade in the major leagues, and he now works for the MLB Network. And Coach Dunphy had nothing but good things to say about him. And as he's talked about, I think he's in his late 60s now, Coach Dunphy. And he, much like Coach K and Coach Boeheim, as they get toward the end of their head coaching careers, I think relish even more the opportunity to be around young minds.
I believe so, but honestly, if you had to look at it, I would say that more so than even Coach Dunphy is changing these young minds, I believe that they change him. I honestly think that Coach Dunphy has adjusted with the times and become even a better coach dealing with these young players because he actually listens to them. It's not always about him telling them, but more importantly, them having a dialogue and a better understanding of how he has to coach each and every one of his players.
He spent 17 years as head coach at Penn and made it to the NCAA tournament 9 times. He's one of 6 coaches ever to lead 2 programs to 200-plus wins and 6 NCAA tournament bids each. Get this list. You're going to like this list, Corey. Roy Williams, Kansas and Carolina. Rick Pitino, Kentucky and Louisville. Eddie Sutton, Arkansas, Oklahoma State. Bob Huggins, Cincinnati and West Virginia. And Lou Henson, New Mexico, Illinois, along with Mr. Fran Dunphy.
That is a very impressive list. And you know what's even more impressive for me about Coach Dunphy is the fact that he has actually been a part of 4 of the 5 Big 5 schools in Philly. He got his master's at Villanova, of course, his bachelor's at LaSalle. He's coached at Temple and Penn. Other than St. Joe's, he's had a hand in each of the Big 5 schools. And for those of you who don't know the Big 5, you ain't really Philly if you don't know about the Big 5.
Marquise Reed with the bucket. Clemson back within 9. I think Coach Dunphy said he's lived in the same house, he and his wife, for 37 years.
Since 1984, he has lived in the exact same house.
So how many Division I head coaches get to live that long in the same place?
I want to know how many times his wife has renovated that house. That's more important. She says, if you're not going to let me move, let me change some things around.
Final 5 minutes of this championship game. Rose has it go halfway down and come out. Clemson trailed by as many as 14 here in the second half. They were down 6 at the break. Grantham, way off the mark. You know what? We'd be remiss if we didn't mention Coach Dunphy. Every time when he's asked about being a professor, he wants to make sure that his colleague Lynn Anderson, Professor Lynn Anderson, is mentioned because Lynn, quote, does all the work. So they do it together. I think Fran's more of a lecturer, and I'm guessing that Lynn does a lot of the nuts and bolts to help him do what he does. Moore. Thomas the rebound. Well, Temple's gone cold to keep the door open for Clemson. The Owls have missed their last 6 shots. Reed dumps it off. Thomas gathers.
Mistake by the big fella, putting the ball on the floor.
Rose and Alston playing a little 2-man game.
I've never played inside, but one thing for certain, I know as a big man, you do not put the basketball on the floor when you have an opportunity to score it. Just like that, Eli Thomas goes up and dunks that quickly. We're talking about a 7-point game in comparison to Temple having an opportunity to make this a double-figure lead once again on the offensive end of the floor.
Brown to the left hand. Clemson's got it. Mitchell ahead to Grantham. Right to the rim for 2. That's your 6'8" senior from Martinsburg, Virginia, being aggressive to the bucket. It's back to a 7-point game.
That would be Martinsburg, West Virginia.
What did I say? Thank you. What state did I put it in?
You put it in Virginia. It was West Virginia. You were very close.
The West Virginia native helping Clemson claw back in. Final 2:52 ahead with the championship on the line. Well, Clemson has cut its second half deficit in half from 14 down to 7, but time is becoming precious. Down 57-50. Corey Alexander, what do the Tigers need to do to come all the way back?
Well, as that clock continues to tick down, they have to take advantage of every opportunity they have to put points on the board and then set up their pressure. But they're going to have to be more aggressive in their pressure and not just allow Temple to bring the ball up the floor. Maybe some traps to try to force turnovers or quick shots on one end of the floor. But you can't give up those opportunities. It's hard for Amir Sims to not give up the three there to Shiz Alston, but you have to recognize how good of a shooter Alston is and make him beat you putting the ball on the floor.
And at that point in the shot clock, should Alston have been able to get out a little bit more to understand, or I should say Spencer? Grantham around and out. And then the putback. I mean, Sims, when he sees the shot clock, I mean, the shooter's got to shoot eventually.
Here's the problem. As you see, Clemson comes back and waits in the 1-3-1 for Temple at half court. But at the same time, that's not going to speed Temple up. Alani Moore can just take his time at the top of the key. They can milk the shot clock down to 5 or 6 seconds and take a shot.
Here's Alani Moore. Puts it up to the rim. It bounces off. And Echionia had a shot at it. Clemson basketball.
At this point, if I'm Clemson, I want a quick score here. If I'm Shelton Mitchell, trying to push the ball to the rim and getting to the rim, and see, even if it's not going to be an opportunity for him to kick it out to one of his shooters.
I think they're going to go to the monitor to make sure they got this out of bounds call correct.
The great thing about being under 2 minutes, they can be sure to have it exactly the right way to where no one gets the basketball that doesn't deserve it at this point.
There's Ted Valentine getting into the shot. We haven't had him on camera as much as usual, I don't think.
When your initials are TV, you have to get as many quality looks on the screen as you can. As we see opportunity, that looks like it may have gone off of Echionia, which I believe was the correct call. As you see, it hits.
Yeah, I believe that's what they called
the leg. Yeah, that's what they call on the floor. Great job by the officiating crew, but does it hit Gabe DeVoe's arm coming off there? I would say no, considering that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was arguing either. Just the officials
well,
double checking to make sure.
Yeah, do the right thing by going over, and it doesn't hurt anything to go over and check. This is the way you attack the basket. Great score by Marquise Reed. Now some full court pressure. Brad Brownell electing the 1-3-1, but still that allows for Temple to milk the clock in comparison to trying to pressure in the full court.
Sims kicked the basketball. The shot clock was down to 19, but with the rules we have in place now, it only resets to 20. And the Owls up 6. Can't just sit on the ball. They've still probably got to score again. Alani Moore with 5 seconds to shoot. Alston back to Moore. They got a good look with 2 on the shot clock. Final minute, Clemson's got it. Shelton Mitchell to the right hand, and he gets the roll. Timeout, Clemson.
And Clemson could not have played the last few possessions any better, although Temple was able to milk some time off the clock. Brad Brownell going with the 1-3-1, not giving Temple any quality looks. And more importantly, Clemson doing a great job coming up with the rebound and pushing it in transition. That's the most important part, not settling for three-pointers, but getting down the floor. Marquise Reed getting to the rim, the finish with the left hand. And then Shelton Mitchell getting out on the break, full speed, no one stopping the basketball, and scoring with his offhand going to the right. And just like that, it's a 4-point game. And give Coach Brownell credit for sticking with the 1-3-1. Even though I thought they should push the ball up and push the pressure up a little bit, he stuck with it, what his team does well. And more importantly, it's allowed his team to get back into this game. Now we're talking a 2-possession game, just 4 points. If they can get another stop, they'll put a lot of pressure on Temple coming down the stretch.
In 3 visits to this event, the Charleston Classic, Clemson's lost just 1 game. They won the 08 title by beating Temple. Then they came back and went 2-1. They're trying to win another title if they can come all the way back here tonight. Now they just put a little more time back on the clock. It's up to 51.5 seconds to go. We've got a chance to tell you once again about the Maui Jim Maui Invitational getting underway November 20th. Notre Dame, Michigan, Wichita State, VCU, Marquette, Cal, LSU, Chaminade, tremendous field out in Maui, Hawaii. Clemson on a 6-0 run here over the last minute 10, and in that time they've gotten to the basket a couple of times, and they're a perfect 3 for 3 from the floor. Can they turn the Owls over?
And now I like the look for Brad Brownell, going with the full court pressure to see if you can get it a turnover, and it was very close there. As the Clemson fans here, and this is one, if I'm Coach Brownell, I'm asking the officials to go to the monitor and check on this one, because a lot of people over there in orange felt like that basketball went off of one of the Temple players.
Jeff Anderson on the baseline made the initial call, but his partner Ted Valentine came from the backcourt and said, I'm not 100% sure that's right. Let's go check it out.
And from that angle, it's going to be difficult to see who touched the ball last, but you do see the hand of Shiz Alston around the basketball. Now, whether or not he touches is at that point. Not sure if we can see. Ooh, look at the technology that we have at ESPN. How good is that? To zoom in, and that looks as though Shiz Alston may have touched that basketball last. He pulled his hand away, but I'm not sure if he got his hand on that basketball.
As Neil Everett says, our toys are better than yours.
The worldwide leader, baby.
Yeah.
Hard to beat it. Another angle we get an opportunity to see, and this will give us probably a better look as to whether or not Alston touched the basketball as it's up in the air.
This was kind of the angle Ted Valentine had.
And again, it was called out of bounds on Clemson, so the ball to go back to, that's the area right there when you see the ball at the end spinning out of bounds. Did Alston touch it? It's hard to determine whether or not he did touch it from that angle.
How about this? And did the rotation of the ball change?
Well,
you know what I mean? Because if he touched it, presumably you would notice the rotation change.
It was spinning pretty quickly, but you see it was overturned, and when that right hand went up, that's where the area where I believe was called, and the call has been overturned, and Clemson will maintain possession. And thank you, Coach Brownell, for making me look good going with the 94-foot pressure.
And indeed, they forced the turnover. Lots of time left. Grantham, no. Did you like that shot?
I did not. I don't think they needed that shot that quick. I thought they've done a great job of pushing the ball and getting it to the rim. But again, you've got a young man who shoots the ball extremely well, taking a 3, which is in his comfort zone, have no problem with that shot. But I would have liked to have seen Mitchell or Reed take the ball to the rim.
Yeah, Grantham's been shooting 75% from the floor in the young season, but not there, and he picks up his 3rd personal foul.
But even still, nothing hurt right now. You still have more than enough time to be able to play this out defensively, come up with the steal. See if you can get a turnover. If you can't, then you foul, but see if you can get one.
More with a good handle. And the foul off the ball given by Grantham.
And good foul right there. At that point, once the ball was entered into Rose right there, and Temple definitely clearly established it across half court, you get the foul down because you don't want to allow the clock to continue to run down.
4th foul on Grantham. Rose on the year, 7 of 11 from the line. This is first shot from the stripe tonight.
35.5 seconds. I don't think you have to go down and fire a 3-pointer, especially if he's able to miss one of these free throws. I think you have to, even still, you go get a quick one and set up your pressure. Don't settle for a bad three-point shot.
Mitchell drives on Anecchionia, who's going to be called.
And
no, it's called on Brown out front. That's number 3 on Brown.
And right now, because there haven't been many fouls called in this game, Clemson not even in the 1-and-1. So a great foul to give right there by Temple in comparison to giving up a layup.
There's your coach on the floor giving up that foul for Temple. DeVoe puts it on the deck. Finds Reed outside, and there was contact. 3 free throws upcoming for Marquise Reed off the personal committed by Alani Moore.
And it's important to make all 3 of these free throws and then be able to set up your pressure. Brad Brownell doesn't need a timeout. He's already alerted his team to what they need to do. The key here now for Reed is to get this lead down as far as he can.
Reed is an excellent foul shooter, the best on this Clemson roster, 91% a year ago.
Interesting to see how Brad Brownell plays this right here. Of course, you can't play it out. You don't have enough time. But to see if he'll put Eli Thomas on the basketball to have a bigger, a tough miss right there for Reed, which would have made it a 1-possession game. He could have cut it to 3 on that one. And we talked about a young man who normally is money at the free throw line. Big miss there.
And so they'll walk to the other free throw line. And one of the 2 seniors on the Clemson roster picked up that foul, gave DeVoe, sending Shiz Alston Jr. to the line. He gets the friendly roll on number 1. Mitchell for 3. And Temple will go back to the line.
And you like that three-pointer by Shelton Mitchell. He got a good look at it, just unable to finish it. And now it's pretty much going to be up to Temple to finish this game at the free throw line with 16.4 remaining.
Folks who made the trip from Philly feel like they've got it in hand, but not just yet. The missed free throw keeps the door open. Grantham with the quick layup.
Just like that, it's a 4-point game, but you don't have a lot of time to waste. If you're Clemson, you've got to make sure you get a turnover or foul quickly, which they go with the foul.
Third foul on Gabe DeVoe. Now, the folks in Philadelphia think there might be something special brewing this year on North Broad Street.
I would have to agree with them. And normally when you have a team that misses out on the NCAA tournament the year before, there's a different focus over the summer in their workouts that allows them to have kind of that chip on their shoulder. Having Josh Brown back in this lineup, I think, is big for Temple this year. And I think they have more than enough pieces to compete right at the top of the American Conference and find their way into the NCAA tournament in March.
Well, we talked about the path that Josh Brown has gone through to get back to this point on the floor. In May of 2016, he ruptured his Achilles tendon, had surgery, tried to play through it last year and failed, but now he's back in full strength, and he is our Advocare player of the game.
And Josh Brown came out in the second half and knocked down 3 3-pointers after being riddled with foul trouble in the first half. that allowed the Temple Owls to extend their lead, but more importantly, his leadership on the floor and everything that else he brings, the intangibles he brings to this group defensively. He's the reason why I feel like he's their MVP of this one, although they had a number of guys step up and play big roles in this win.
That should do it. Temple came here to Charleston having not played a game this season. And they will head back to Philly. 3-0. Grantham commits the foul. He is out. And here are the numbers for our Advocare player of the game, Josh Brown. 13 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds. And that was in spite of the foul trouble that he went through in that first half. He's played a really good second half.
Yeah, not a gaudy stat line, but when you look at this Temple team and what they were able to do today, it wasn't one person getting it done. It was a complete team effort. When you look at it, they have 5 players in double figures. They came into the game with 3 guys averaging over 17 points per game. None of those 3 had great offensive nights. Josh Brown stepped up big for his teammates, making big shots here in the second half.
Temple wins the 2017 Gildan Charleston Classic.
And we had a great time here. Give Coach Dunphy and his team a lot of credit, as well as Brad Brownell and the Clemson Tigers. Both these teams had great showings here at the Gildan Charleston Classic. Unfortunately, only one team can walk away a champion, and that goes to the Temple Owls.
So on Thursday, they beat Old Dominion in the quarterfinals. On Friday, Temple took out Auburn in the semifinals, and here in the championship, they take down Clemson of the ACC to win the title here in 2017. Congratulations to Temple. Final score once again, 67-60. Next on ESPN2, Championship Drive, Who's In? Presented by Northwestern Mutual.